Hey everybody, it's Chris Johnson from Monday Morning, and I've got an earnings trade hot off the presses. Today as my stock to watch, we're going to take a look at Intel after their results hit the tape. I'm going to give you 3 reasons in the next 5 minutes to take a look at it as a buy the dip opportunity on an AI sleeper stock. So let's jump into it. That's right, you heard me correctly. I consider Intel to be one of those AI sleeper stocks. They haven't been at the forefront with NVIDIA and some of the other big names, but this is a company to watch as a turnaround has started and is going to compel the stock to go much higher through 2024. So, earnings just came out on the stock after the close today, and they're nothing that blew the hair back of Wall Street, at least if you look at what's going on with the price. Stock is trading down 10%. You'd think those results were horrible, right, CJ? No, not in this case. When you look back at the earnings results for the fourth quarter, and that's what they're telling us about, they actually beat expectations by 9 cents. That's on the earnings per share, the bottom line as we call it. Revenue, or the top line, they beat on those expectations as well, as revenue grew almost 10% year over year. Now, looking back to June of 2023, the company told us that this was part of the plan. The CEO announced that they're going to kind of take a look at the company from 2 different perspectives, the fabless business and then the fabrication or the manufacturing business. We call it foundry, right? They're looking to focus on those 2 because that is the future of the semiconductor industry. And when you look at Intel, it's one of those companies that's been on the forefront, especially when it comes to these big super cycles. And we're going to see a super cycle in the AI industry that's going to kick off sometime during 2024. That's right. There's a lot more to come as that super cycle lifts all the boats in the harbor, including Intel. Now, looking forward is what Wall Street is tripping up on. That same earnings report where they looked back and said we did a great job last quarter is looking forward to the first quarter of 2024, and there's a little bit of a hiccup. They pulled back on the guidance. I don't see it as a bad thing right now because the company is dealing with some issues with Mobileye and a couple of the other companies that Intel bought over the last decade. Those companies are going through a little bit of a cyclical correction or an inventory and Mobileye situation, an inventory correction, and that's what's pulling down the guidance. So revenue and earnings per share are coming down on Intel for the first quarter. But there's more than just 3 months in the year, right? So when you look at the rest of 2024, the outlook is still good as a turnaround really has taken root with Intel. Let's look at what the stock normally does after earnings and the earnings and earnings beat and expectations trend right now, because that's what matters to me. So what you've got here is my standard chart that shows us what the stock has done 2 weeks after earnings. And you see last quarter was a really good quarter for Intel. Stock went up more than 10%, actually 15% after they beat expectations. And their guidance was nice. It was in line. It was nothing spectacular. They didn't lower it. Right now, shares are trading down 10%. So if we had a bar here, it's going to be down for at least the first day after trading. 2 weeks, I expect it to be down as well, but there's a point where you want to buy the dip here on Intel. This is the part of this chart that is really nice. It's the earnings expectations and their actual results. And what you see here is a huge turnaround. We see in April 2023, the stock started to trend higher. That was after the company in June started to announce that, hey, we're taking things differently. We're going to focus on that foundry business. Remember, United States or Congress and the Biden administration passed the CHIPS Act last year, and that is going to help Intel to become a mega foundry provider here, let's call it. That super cycle is going to help them. They've already told us that they want to be a producer or a manufacturer for NVIDIA and AMD. So they want to be part of their businesses as well. And this is the first time that we've brought that manufacturing back to the United States. It's part of the security that we're trying to build around semiconductors. When we look at what's happened in the industry, that growth has obviously got some cracks or some problems in terms of security for the United States. That's why we've got the CHIPS Act. That's why Intel right now is one of those companies you've got to watch. So that turnaround is going to continue to be fed by that foundry business and the focus that Intel is taking. Just to take a look here, 32% of the time the stock trades higher after earnings. So right now being down 10% isn't a huge deal. Intel's been there and done that. Remember, the company's up 65% over the last year. And usually it's 1% on average. So whether they beat or they miss, 8% is the upside. We're not going to see that right now. 9.6%. I want you to think about that because I've already said the stock is trading down 10% after hours. So we've already fulfilled that. We could see more. And I think you're going to see a little knee-jerk reaction, but there's a reason that I don't think it's going to be overdone. And keep in mind, we see that earnings per share and that revenue continue to improve. So from a long-term perspective, Intel's in a great spot. Let's look at why I don't expect this to be a situation where Intel pulls back much in that 10%. And it's all about the expectations. That's the second part here. The fundamentals are solid. The expectations are low. Wall Street doesn't think they're going to get much out of Intel. And it's shown because right now we've got only 13% of the analysts that are in the sell category, right? It's not that much. Only 23% are buyers of the stock. When you compare that to companies like Microsoft, Amazon, NVIDIA, they're up around 90%. Intel is not a crowded trade. The expectations are not high. Everybody's sitting over here in that hold camp. They're kind of sitting on the fence. They don't want to be buyers. They don't want to be sellers. It doesn't take much to get them to start moving into that buy camp, and that means upgrades. They're not going to come right now because obviously the guidance is pulled back, but I don't expect anybody to be downgrading the stock. They're still trying to put a value on the company. That's one of the things. June of last year, they announced that they're going to take this two-pronged approach, the fabless and the foundry businesses. That is something that is paying off already in terms of revenue and earnings per share, and it's something that is going to continue to build the foundation of those fundamentals for Intel. For that reason, this is a long-term buy. And again, you're going to see more of those analysts moving into that buy category as we continue to see that pay off. We haven't seen any analyst change in the wake of that earnings report tonight. So think about what happened to Tesla. They announced that their guidance was coming down and they missed. And all of a sudden, the analysts started to pull back and jump into those categories that are lower. They downgraded the stock. We saw 19 different analysts within 24 hours downgrading Tesla. 19. That number went up to 21, and we've seen how that's played out on the stock. In this case, we're not seeing the analysts start to buzz. We may see some reiterations tomorrow. That'll be another story, but I don't think you're going to see much movement. And the current price for Intel is at $39.50 in terms of their expectations. So you've got a price that is actually at $50. The analysts expect $39.50. They're not going to lower those targets right now, not with what's going on with the fundamentals for Intel. So you're not going to see those target prices come down again. I think this is going to be a non-event for the analysts. It's just a knee-jerk reaction on that 10% pullback after hours. We're not going to see that movement. So what do I think we're going to see from Intel? Well, I think as you start to look forward and you think about what's going to happen with the company, we're actually going to see a buy the dip opportunity. I'm going to go over to the chart right now and start to walk you through that. As I said, we're trading up about $50 on Intel before the earnings report. Now the stock is pulling back right here to the $45 mark after hours. Notice that 50-day moving average that I talk about all the time. This is the thing that tells you whether a stock's trend is your friend or not. If the 50 days trending higher, you can expect the stock to continue that trend for a 4 to 6 week period at minimum. In addition to that, there's a 2 out of 3 chance the stock's going to close higher day after day as long as that 50-day is trending higher. So right now, the trend is friendly. We're going to see some pullbacks, and we've seen them in Intel over the last month or so, and that's part of the corrective phase in some cases. It gets us off those highs, and you find the buy the dippers coming in. That's the situation I see. When you look out at the longer term picture, and I'll pull that up right now for you as well. When you look at the long term right now, that monthly chart that I like to look at for Intel, you're also seeing a stock that even as it hit that $50 level is still looking as though it's in a long-term uptrend. We bottomed out around $25 at the end of 2022, and the stock has not turned back. It is in a long-term bull market trend. So if I think the stock's in a bull market trend on a longer term basis, I want to buy those dips. The question would be where? Right now, ideally, I want to see support start to kick in at that $50 level for Intel. That's going to tell me that the short-term buy the dippers are coming in, and I can expect to see a bottom there, and the stock will start to turn higher and rush right back towards $50. I do think the market's going to see some weakness here over the next couple weeks, especially after next week when we get a lot of those Magnificent Seven stocks out of the way. We need a break right now. We've been running so fast in terms of up speed here on the market. We got to see a little bit of a correction, a healthy correction. In that case, I could see Intel going down to that 4250, and you'll notice that we've been there as early as December of last year. Little consolidation at that level as a lot of people come in and start to buy the dip, and that's where we see the stock start to base out and move higher. Where's my target for Intel over the next year? I think we could see another 40 to 50% year. That's going to take you over $75 on the Intel by the end of the year. Remember, we've got an AI super cycle that's going to start lifting everybody, including IBM, which is what I talked about earlier this week. These stocks are set to go as everybody gets in on the AI craze. So let's summarize everything for you real quickly. Intel's turnaround story is still being written on the long-term basis. The fundamentals are improving, and they've not given us any indication that we should expect otherwise. The company's first quarter guidance is a reflection of the businesses that are not of Intel's forward-looking fundamentals right now. So in other words, it's kind of a little bit of baggage that the company's trying to get out of the way. The foundry business is going to serve absolutely as a huge revenue boost as we start to get into that AI super cycle, and we see a lot of the manufacturing coming back to the United States. That's a long-term play. The current pullback is going to be an opportunity to buy it ahead of another 40 to 50% move in Intel as we move through 2024. Get through this little bit of a pullback, and you've got an opportunity to buy a long-term performer that I see moving up again to that $75 to $80 range by year end. That's it. Don't forget to like and follow. Get some more information. Get in here with us as we tear apart stocks on a daily basis and give you some real great stocks to watch. Again, I'm Chris Johnson with Money Morning, wishing you the best trading success. Have a great day.